In May 1940, as German forces surged across Western Europe, Hermann Göring and the Nazi leadership dismissed President Franklin D. Roosevelt's call for America to produce 50,000 aircraft annually as empty propaganda. From their perspective, the United States was an inexperienced, racially degenerate, consumer-oriented society, incapable of sustained war production. This contempt was rooted not only in ignorance, but also in ideology. Nazi racial theories and authoritarian assumptions blinded them to the reality of American industrial potential. Even accurate intelligence reports from German officials in Washington warning that U.S. production could reach unprecedented levels were ignored or ridiculed in Berlin. What Göring failed to understand was that the American system did not rely on centralized coercion, but on organizational innovation, managerial expertise, and voluntary mobilization. Roosevelt's appointment of William Knudsen, a former General Motors executive, symbolized this shift. Knudsen applied automotive mass production principles to aircraft manufacturing, fundamentally changing how airplanes were built. Instead of artisanal, slow-moving processes, aircraft were broken into subassemblies, standardized, and produced on moving lines. Skepticism was widespread, even among America's allies, because the leap from a few thousand aircraft per year to tens of thousands seemed implausible. Yet within 2 years, monthly output had multiplied dramatically, proving the skeptics wrong. The Willow Run bomber plant exemplified both the difficulty and ultimate success of this transformation. Initially, Ford's promise to build 1 heavy bomber per hour seemed absurd, and early results appeared to confirm critics' doubts. Production delays, quality failures, and design complexities plagued the factory. However, persistence, engineering adaptation, and organizational learning gradually overcame these problems. By modularizing the B-24 Liberator, introducing new tools, and refining workflows, Willow Run eventually achieved a production rate unmatched anywhere in the world. By 1944, that single factory was producing more bombers than the entire German aviation industry, a fact that shattered any lingering illusions of parity. While American production surged, German leadership retreated deeper into denial. Reports of 3-shift American factories and women filling skilled industrial roles were dismissed as signs of desperation rather than strength. The Nazi worldview could not accept that democratic societies, without forced labor or totalitarian control, could mobilize more effectively than dictatorships. In reality, the inclusion of women transformed American industry. Female workers proved highly effective in precision tasks, such as riveting, wiring, and inspection, often improving quality and efficiency. Tool redesigns made work safer and faster, benefiting all workers and further boosting output. By 1943 and 1944, the consequences of this production imbalance became starkly visible in the air war over Europe. American bomber losses, once devastating, became mathematically sustainable. Aircraft and crews could be replaced faster than Germany could destroy them. German fighter pilots increasingly faced overwhelming numbers, with bomber streams stretching across the horizon. Even highly skilled aces recognized the futility of fighting an enemy that could absorb losses without strategic consequence. The Luftwaffe not only lost aircraft faster than it could replace them, but more critically, lost experienced pilots whose skills could not be manufactured. Germany attempted to respond by dispersing production into underground factories and relying heavily on slave labor. This strategy proved disastrous. Sabotage, poor working conditions, logistical complexity, and collapsing quality control undermined output. Entire underground complexes produced fewer usable engines or aircraft than single American plants operating above ground with free labor. Instead of increasing resilience, dispersion magnified inefficiency. Meanwhile, American factories continued to refine designs and incorporate combat feedback rapidly, making incremental improvements in weeks rather than months or years. The contrast extended beyond numbers to quality and adaptability. American bombers were heavily armed, well-equipped with navigation and targeting systems, and supported by robust logistics. German aircraft increasingly suffered from shortages of fuel, ammunition, radios, and trained mechanics. Even genuine German technological breakthroughs, such as the Me-262 jet fighter, failed to alter the war's course. Although revolutionary in speed, it was produced in insufficient numbers, plagued by unreliable engines, and crippled by resource shortages. The United States, by contrast, could afford to develop jets, refine piston-engine aircraft, and expand production simultaneously, a reflection of its unmatched industrial depth. The cumulative result was industrial annihilation. By the time of the Normandy invasion, Allied air superiority was so overwhelming that German resistance was largely symbolic. The sheer scale of American aircraft production enabled massive airborne operations, sustained strategic bombing, and global logistics across two oceans. No tactical brilliance or individual heroism could compensate for such disparities. Even Nazi leaders eventually recognized this reality. Diaries, post-war interrogations, and trial testimony reveal Göring's belated acknowledgement that American factories, not American soldiers, had broken Germany's power. The American production miracle reshaped not only the war, but the post-war world. The skills, infrastructure, and technologies developed for wartime manufacturing laid the foundation for decades of economic growth. Aluminum plants, chemical industries, and machine tool factories transitioned seamlessly into civilian production. Statistical quality control, automation, and systems management became global standards. The same industrial mindset that produced bombers would later build rockets and spacecraft, linking wartime necessity to peacetime innovation. The Second World War was not decided solely on battlefields, but in factories, design offices, and supply chains. Democracy's strength lay in its ability to mobilize talent, encourage innovation, and adapt rapidly without coercion. Germany's authoritarian system, reliant on ideology, forced labor, and rigid hierarchy, proved incapable of matching this flexibility. The avalanche of American production buried the Axis not through a single decisive weapon, but through relentless, sustained superiority in material power. In dismissing America as a nation of consumer goods and assembly lines, Nazi leaders misunderstood the true nature of modern warfare.